All right, we live. Let me play the intro.
Welcome to Kamjiverse. This is your exclusive bridge between the legacy of classical Africa and the triumphs of modern African revolutions. You won't find this connection anywhere else. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell so you never miss an episode. Share this video with friends and family. Become a channel member or join our Patreon. The links are waiting in the description. Let's honor our sacred legacy and ignite our future together.
Shut up, you dumb, you sound like a coon. Get out, stay clear of this room. We proud, we black, white, and forever stay paid. They lies and killing spraying from the soil they enslaved. Their tales are sham, cooked up by scammers who toil. So shut up, chief X, you're a grifter, spoiled. You're both having drivel like your soul. Coptic verse, that language is liturgical, not to rehearse curse. While Ethiopian and Nubian cops and Cairo so merciful. Drop troops surgical, leaving your myths pitiful.
You act like black folks ain't speaking remake, give me your idiocy. Rusty, can't study, can't even see me. Bubble brother, hush up before I knock your sugar out. Don't twist our ancestors' lore, I'll butcher your clout.
Unity can make our truth burns bright. We stand as one exposing your lies tonight. No scam or false prophet can dim our light. Turn it unfiltered, let pride takes flight.
You claim you came from Baltimore, just more trash on display. I bet the faithful flock was up, dusting your ass away. Into that fat orange cat, you're dumber than a box of rocks. Pushing assimilation as politics to shock like cheap mock.
We spot you from a mile, you acting slick. This is real knowledge, not your cool logical scholarship. If you scared, you should be watching. I spit God's flame, the bars don't gain. You dumb when I put you to shame.
When your twisted lies crumble and your fake talk fades, our united voice echoes, truth never degrades. From the ashes of the sea, our spirit invades. In Kemet's name, your false crown forever cascades.
Rosie aka Amir, the scam's a total disgrace. Spitting away with one jargon at a crooked scheme and pace. You twist words confused, try to carve up a space. A fraud in your fake gospel body cue with no base. You try to fool slow blacks with your bogus empty guys, but your clumsy act crumbles under truth piercing eyes. Kemet stands united, no room for your deceitful art. Step aside, false prophet, your lies will break a heart.
Unity in Kemet, our truth burns bright. We stand as one exposing your lies tonight. No scam or false prophet can dim our light. Turn it unfiltered, let pride takes flight.
Unity in Kemet, our truth burns bright. We stand as one, exposing your lies tonight. No scam or false prophet can condemn our life. Kemet, unfiltered, black pride takes flight.
I want to share what you broadcast.
Yeah, shit. I don't know about that one. OBS would be the way to do it, but I haven't configured that properly.
Oh, okay, I figured you streamed it live, but I don't have OBS. That sound like Drake. Oh, yeah.
Oh shit, I hope this doesn't fuck up. What's good? What's good? Just give me a 1 in the chat if you can hear me. There's a little bit of feedback somewhere. I can't figure out where exactly. But can you hear me good, Jabari?
Yeah, I hear you, real.
Yeah, I think your camera's frozen. I don't see movement. Oh, there it is. There it is. All right, for sure. I think we got let me see how many people we got in the building so far. There's 9 people watching so far. I see Trigger Happy in the chat. I see Pan African James in the chat. And they all can hear us really well. I hope that the feedback isn't coming from the chat in the background, but Deshaun can hear us pretty good. And if you can hear me well, we could, get into the conversation. We have a really, really special guest this evening, our resident, Garveyite. I know a lot of y'all been hearing conversations about the importance of Garvey, like Garvey's dead, like Pan-Africanism is dead, it doesn't matter. But I'm going to allow my guest here to introduce himself and tell us why, he's here to talk about Garvey in this day and age in 2025. So Jabari, you got the floor.
I want to start by saying I commit my body, my mind, and my spirit to the protection, defense, and security of the red, the black, and the green. I dedicate my life to the redemption of Mother Africa and to the liberation of her scattered black children. I accept for myself and my descendants the teachings of universal African nationalism, and I promise that my children will be instilled with the purpose and knowledge of themselves as African people. To all black people are free and united under one God, one name, one destiny, one Africa. Yeah, my name is Jabari Garvey. I adopted the name Garvey because, that's what we principled by, our great forefather, Marcus Garvey said, but I am the first Marcus Garvey. My cubs are in the fold. And in his spirit, in the world, we pick up Garvey and Garveyism. We are the ancestors that we awake inside of us. Garvey name and his spirit is so important today, because recently, Joe Biden gave a presidential pardon to Marcus Garvey. But the UNIA, ACL, RC 2020, we've been working for years. We exonerated Garvey ourselves in 2020. And, in the hearts and minds of black people everywhere. So they was forced to do, I've been working with, and we have been working with the Honorable Julius Garvey, the living son of Marcus Garvey, for over a decade trying to get this done. We pushed up against President Obama, who didn't pardon him, and several presidents. Even Earl Little, the father of Malcolm X, was pushing for a presidential pardon for Garvey way back when he got assassinated. And I believe that may be one of the reasons why they killed him. So Garvey's spirit is well alive. Kwame Nkrumah, who started the African People's Revolution Party, he was a member of the UNIA when he was in Philadelphia. And then when he returned back to Ghana and liberated Ghana, he said of all the things that he read and studied.
Hold up, Jabari. I think that some people in the chat are saying that your mic is low. I don't know if that is happening right now. Can y'all hear him? Can you hear me? Saying that the mic is low. Mic check. Just give us a 1 if you could hear us in the chat. If you can't hear us very well, give us a 2.
Mic check.
Just a wait in for everybody, because usually when you start talking about these political issues, the YouTube agents, provocateurs, they start acting up. Especially these important conversations. If we were having a conversation about twerking, probably wouldn't have any sound issues. But we're gonna roll with the punches and just see. We can hear both, but I think your mic might be louder than his. That's why his sounds lower. Okay, so let me go into my control room and let me see. I don't know if I don't really see you on here in the room. You're here though. I don't see you though. I see your presence that you're here, but I don't see you here, which is kind of interesting. I'm gonna try to see. Do you see the gear If you click the gear in the actual room, it'll show your audio source.
Is my camera better this way?
Like, do you see that? Like the gear in the actual, yeah, this is good. Much anticipated. Jabari Shaw is a legend. Hey, shout out to Kiyamo in the chat. You know, he's a really good brother out here in the Bay Area doing a lot of great work. A lot of great work. He's better. Maybe he needs to make sure his mic isn't covered up. Okay, they're saying now it sounded a little bit better. All right, we good. Jabari disappeared. He about to be back, you know. But look, we getting into the importance of Marcus Garvey, the importance of Garveyism. You back?
Say we on air, but I don't hear anything.
You can't hear me? Jabari? Hold up. Jabari, can you hear me? Uh-oh. Check. I can hear you, but I don't think you can hear me. Hold up a sec.
G.
You don't hear me?
I don't see you no more. Do you hear me?
Yeah, hold up real quick. I'm gonna
back.
You got me?
Yeah, I'm back.
All right, for sure. All right, if everybody can hear us, we can continue onwards in the interview. So we were getting into who Jabari is. So can you explain a little bit more for people who didn't get a chance? Who are you, and what inspired you to join the UNIA ACL?
Well, it's difficult. My birth name is Jabari. You know, my father, when he was 14, he changed his name to Jabari. He and his brother all changed their name.
Damn, I think it froze. No, we keep losing. No, that's crazy. This is definitely instigated. This is some YouTube voodoo working right here. But we're gonna figure it out. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Like, you were speaking, you were going in, and then it cut off. It keep happening, bro. We gonna try again, though. We gonna try again. And if everybody still hears him, but I just saw him cut off. But
maybe I should log off my tablet and go through my phone. What you think?
Oh yeah, try that. Let's see. But I'm gonna keep him entertained. Yeah, so you know, Jabari is a legendary person, you know, in the Bay Area. Like, he comes from a long legacy and dynasty of black inventors and black organizers. And he's gonna, you know, break down, you know, just some of the history that he has organizing, not only in the Bay Area, but all over the country, right? So he's a really, really powerful person. He has a lot of experience. He's a walking encyclopedia with respect to Garveyism. And he's got really intricate knowledge about what's going on today in the Sahel. So it's going to be, I'm super excited. The YouTube voodooist, or the YouTube, you know, I don't know what you want to call them, Satanists, you know, YouTube magic, whatever it is, you know, we about to get it working. We about to get it popping, because this is a really, really powerful presentation. So I'm good. I'm gonna make sure that it says 1. There he is, coming back. Jabari Garvey. There you are. Hey, let's get it. So, you know, third time's is a charm. We're gonna break it down. Yeah, that was loudness. I don't know what that was. That was like a scratchy scratch. But so break down the history that you have with the UNIA.
Yeah, so like I said, I grew up semi-conscious with my name being Jabari and all of that, and I got in trouble just like regular kids did. And when I was in the penitentiary, you know, they executed Stanley Tookie Williams. Stanley Tookie Williams was, you know, the founder of the Crips and all of that, and got into his criminal behavior. But while he was locked up, you know, he had won the Nobel Peace Prize. He had written over 5 books, you know, and he had helped call for the gang troops in LA, and they still assassinated him. You know, they still murdered him by lethal injection. And in his lethal injection, you know, it didn't work the first 2 times, so it was more like torture. And it kind of woke us up. We went on a hunger strike, and we considered what was going on in the communities that we helped destroy. So we some of us made a pledge. We wasn't all from Oakland, but some of us made a pledge, what I call like a broken window pledge. If you go break the window, saying sorry don't work. You have to replace the window before you can apologize, to start the healing. And so we made a pledge to go back and heal the communities that we helped destroy. So, you can't break a window and ask for apology. You can't break a community and just ask for apology. So when I came home from prison, I started going to Laney College and started, working in my community to help rebuild the community that I helped destroy. Within that, I had met with Black Panthers and stuff like that. And, it just went on from 2008, working with the Commemoration Committee for the Black Panther Party and doing different events with them, political education classes, learning about the party, what they did, and what they stood for, the political programs, besides just the gun. And one of the elders that I called my uncle, his name is Elder Freeman, and he was a third generation Garveyite, and he always talks about Fred Hampton, Huey P. Newton, and Marcus Garvey, and so with us wanting to be Panthers and saying Panthers, he was like, man, what you know about Marcus Garvey? You know what I'm saying? And he influenced me to start a division of the UNIA, where I didn't think it existed at the time. And it was kind of ironic because my first year in college, I took a Black history class and I did my report on Marcus Garvey. The following year, my son was born on August 17th, the day that Marcus Garvey was born on. The year after that, my next son was born on July 20th, the day that the UNIA was founded on. And so I took that as a sign from the ancestors, to follow that dream. In 2014, the Elder Freeman became an ancestor. He and his brother Roland Freeman both transitioned and went back to the ancestors. And in honor of them and what they taught me, what they stood for, I pushed forward to start the division of the UNIA here in Oakland. That was a 100-year anniversary of the existence of the UNIA.
That's what's up. That's what's up. So you mentioned a lot of history there that, a lot of our listeners may not be familiar with. Can you briefly describe just the connection between the Black Panthers and the Garvey movement? Because that's not known by many people.
Yeah, well, the philosophies and opinions of Marcus Garvey was on the reading list for the Black Panther Party. That was a required book. If you was going to be a Panther, you needed to read that. So we think of Marcus Garvey as our great-grandfather, you know what I'm saying? Malcolm X is our grandfather, and then the Black Panther Party being the children of Malcolm X. So even though they started off, Black Panther Party started off as a Pan-African organization, fixing the community, self-help programs, so all of that's in line with Garvey and Garveyism. It was later on with people when they different arguments that try to make organizations or things seem separate. So that was a part of COINTELPRO that made us feel like it was a different fight. In Revolutionary Suicide, Dr. Huey P. Newton said the Black Panther Party started in Africa and when the first Africans resisted colonialism. So he's seen the connection, and we should recognize the connection too. Another thing is that with UNIA divisions, they recognize the leadership and the historical relevance of the leaders in their local divisions. So in Washington, D.C., it's the Banneker Division. In Kenya, in Ghana, it's the Black Star Division. So in Oakland, it's the Black Panther Division, recognizing our local history here.
That's what's up. That's what's up. So can you just...
Even the UNIA had an office here, in Oakland. It was Liberty Hall, still standing right here in Oakland. That same Liberty Hall that later on got closed, and then Father Divine took over it. Then Black Panthers held programs in that same building. So, and that's right around the corner from where Dr. Huey P. Newton was assassinated at.
No, that's what's up. That's what's up. So, the UNIA is still alive and well. A lot of people have the impression that after Garvey was deported, it died. But what you're describing is that there's a continuation of the UNIA within different Black Power organizations. Is that correct?
Yes, definitely. And you know, and there's plenty of different auxiliaries also. With on Garvey's farewell speech, when he got deported, he said, "Keep the principles of my great organization still alive." So even though the name had been torn through the mud, people started other organizations with the same objects and names, the same principles of the UNIA. One key person being Queen Mother Moore, who was a member of the UNIA and later started the parental government of the Republic of New Africa. You know, she had also started another group called the Pacific Ethiopian Women, or something like that, where Malcolm X's mother was a member. Charlotta Bass was a member, and that was the woman, the first woman who ran for vice president of the United States of America, first Black woman. You know, and she was a division president in LA. So it was different connections and different organizations that built. Even Noble Drew Ali went and had a long meeting with Marcus Garvey the Honorable Marcus Garvey, when he was in jail in Atlanta. And then that thrust a lot of people that was in UNIA members to become members at a more science temple. So, and that's the same thing. That's what happened with the grandfather of Elder Freeman. His grandfather was a Garveyite. When Garvey got deported, he joined the Moorish Science Temple, and then his grandkids ended up being Black Panthers, who reverted back to the UNIA in 1990, 1991. Around 1990, 1991 is when the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey's son was the president of the UNIA. And so at that time, we worked for the building the Million Man March. You know, we had a big convention in LA at the time where we stood with the Honorable Khalid Muhammad. See, Dr. Khalid Muhammad, around the time that they was organizing for the Million Man March, came to our office in Philadelphia, and what he wanted was for us to co-sign on the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to say that he was a member of the UNIA and that he was a cardinal. And so we went through our records, and it showed that he was in fact a member at the age of 24, him and his wife. I'm talking about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And so we verified that. And in the midst of the conversation with our historian, he told Dr. Khalid Muhammad, you know, in our Constitution, every Black person, it states that every Black person is a member of the UNIA, those who haven't betrayed their race through penalty of perjury. So he's a member of the UNIA. He said, well, we had two kind of members, you know, those who are active and those who are inactive. And that's when Dr. Khalid Muhammad paid his dues and became a member. So he stood next to, in 1991, stood next to Marcus Garvey Jr., you know, at a big convention where Elder Freeman and Roland Freeman were both a part of. And so it never stopped. It, because of the smear on Garvey's name, we went through different names and organizations to get the same goals accomplished. But it has never stopped. You know, we've always admired and loved Marcus Garvey and what he stood for. And if you look at what's going on in the Sahel, all over Africa, I was right
about to ask you that. We keep going.
Call it Marcus Garvey's name. It's the same plan. So you got to recognize. All right, Garvey got deported. He died in 1940. You know, his biggest successor that we could think of was Kwame Nkrumah. You know, who said that of everything that I learned to study, the philosophies and opinions of Marcus Garvey influenced me the most. And so in 1957, that's when he liberated Ghana. After he liberated Ghana, then he started supporting other movements. So 26 other countries liberated themselves, you know, in the name of Garveyism, in the name of one Africa, you know, what Garvey preached. Garvey was trying to get into Liberia to push the same narrative, to push the same programs, but he got stopped, and they ended up selling the land to Firestone Tires. You know what I mean? So it wasn't that Garvey didn't want to get into Africa. They stopped UNIA members from getting into Africa. So the children of Garvey ended up being the Kwame Nkrumahs, the Thomas Sankaras, the Patrice Lumumbas, the Nnamdi Azikiwe's, You know, Sekou Touré, who was a member of the UNIA, they kept pushing forth from Garveyism. So the thing is that in the 60s, they started with the neo-colonialism struggle and political assassinations. You know, it's been over 200 coups and political assassinations since 1960, you know, stopping the African independence movement that was started by the Honorable Marcus Garvey. So now we picking it up today. You see what I'm saying? And the name of Garvey is still being called out, still resonating. You know, we have a division in Burkina Faso of the UNIA. We have a division of the UNIA in Gambia. We have a division in the UNIA in Kenya, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, Lagos.
So on that point that you just mentioned, because you mentioned the Sahelian states and it being a continuation of, you know, the Garveyism through Nkrumah. So what are the ways, specific ways, that the UNIA is assisting the alliance of Sahelian states to defeat imperialism?
Well, first off, we in the war for the minds of African people. We're in the war for the minds of African people. When we realize who we are, then we can do more for our people. You know, Garvey said he came to sell the African man and woman to themselves. You know what I mean? Because we didn't have a backbone until he came. And so with us preaching Garveyism, starting our own businesses and living the culture is changing the culture of our people to where they can't go back to being dumb, deaf, and blind. We have programs on the ground, like in Sierra Leone, we have a tools and seed program to where we donating tools and seeds and we helping people that they can create self-sufficiency and plant their own gardens and have their own food, so where they don't have to worry about food security. Now they can get educated. Now they can build and they can do things for themselves. And we're working with, where we had divisions at, we're working with the governments to fast track citizenship. So most UNIA members have citizenship in Africa, and so we're doing programs with those cultural exchanges, and that's taking resources there. It is building the morale of the people, and it's pushing the scales. It's pushing the scales, definitely.
What do the numbers look like?
Conversations, our international organizer is in conferences in Addis Ababa and wherever they have them at. You know, so our delegates are in these conversations. We have members. Our Queen Mother is a member of CARICOM, you know, and so she's in those conversations. You know, we in the islands, you know, we in Belize, we in St. Croix, we in I'm sorry, the name's escaping me right now. Costa Rica, you know, so we doing work throughout the diaspora. You know, and we're even in London. We have divisions in London and Brixton. So we have people on the ground that's agitating. One of the complications in organizing nowadays is that everybody wants to be independent, be their own organization. And so they don't actually want to join something that exists, you know, and the narrative of Garvey's name being tarnished by the government and what they did in the trial of Garvey has made some people be reluctant to work with us or to call themselves the UNIA. And because, you know, Negro is in our title, Universal Negro Improvement Association. So some black folks like, I don't want to be a Negro. So they don't actually want to join up under us, but we see them as our auxiliaries. And we have memorandums of understanding, which we call decrees of Ma'at, with several organizations that we have working understandings with, and we're able to get work done. So for us, it's not to be the UNIA name on everything. It's for us to get the programs and things done that we need to done. You know, like the elders say, it's not about I, he, or me. It's about we collectively, you know.
No, definitely, most def. Like, and on the note of the Sahel, because we do know that, you know, the Sahel are military-led governments, and many people, particularly in ECOWAS, you know, they have a problem with that, and they think it should be civilian rule. But when I go look at the Garvey movement, it was a paramilitary organization So what do you think about, the paramilitary aspect of Garveyism? Do you see the Sahel transitioning to civilian rule, or do you think that the military rule is a better option?
I'm glad you asked that question. So you know that the Black Legionnaires, the Universal African Legionnaires, was founded after the war. So the Harlem Hellfighters, in particular, they came back and they didn't want to fight. They didn't want them to fight with American soldiers, so they ended up going to France and fighting with the French. And so they had some miraculous fights that happened out there, and they may have won the war. But when they came back, they had a big march, and when the African and Black fighters came back to march, the KKK attacked them, and they joined the UNIA, and we had the Black Cross nurses in the UNIA. So it was women who was learning nursing and trading different holistic herbal remedies to fix our people, and they started working on it. And we was making sure because they had the Deaf Society where if you were a UNIA member, they would make sure people were buried properly and were taken care of. And so these soldiers joined the UNIA, and then they trained people in the UNIA, and they took the women out to go practice shooting on Sundays after church. And so this was all an intricate part of the UNIA because of how they was rejected from the system. They tried to be Buffalo Soldiers. They tried to fight for the war for independence. And then when the wars happened in Ethiopia, we had many of those trained men who wanted to go volunteer to fight for Africa, and it was denied to them. They wouldn't let them fight, And so fast forward, you see what happened in Cuba and how they sent troops into Africa to help in Algeria and other places like that. So it's been ongoing. They want us to think that it's not. And then so now, fast forward to 2008, 2007, they came with Afrikan to take over, and put troops on the ground in Africa. They denied it at that time, rejected it. But up under Barack Obama, they was able to bring in, Afrikan. They was able to assassinate Gaddafi, who had the same One Africa plan, who's, if you look at his flag, he has the same red, black, and green that was established by Marcus Garvey in the UNIA. That flag they used, but he had a crescent star and the crescent and the star because he was Muslim. So it's always been the same plan, we haven't deferred from that. So when they came in with Afrikan, they started training the soldiers for us to keep ourselves down so that they could have American military and American trained military to keep their interest in Africa. But this changed on them, returned on them, because them same trained people, just like when you look at the Arab Spring with Mohammed Morsi, then people couldn't turn guns on their own people. So as somebody like Captain Ibrahim Traoré started seeing the corruption and seeing what was happening on the ground, they ended up overthrowing the government. So when you look at coups, in Africa, you have coups that's financed by aliens, by outside governments. France is king of the coup, but this is more of a junta, and this is a people's overthrow of the government. So in America, we don't really understand the narrative of it because everybody got guns in America. People don't really have guns in Africa unless it's the military. Unless it's a military or it's some kind of terrorist organization that's funded by outside people. So usually to exchange government, if you have a corrupt government, you would have to have the military engaged in that coup. Because nobody else has guns. Nobody can protect themselves. They're just subject to whatever happens. So that's why you see so many so-called military coups happening in Africa. Some of them are coups funded by outside entities for their interests. But this, what happened in Mali, what happened in Niger, what happened in Burkina Faso, we call that a junta. That's a people's overthrow of the government. And it usually has to happen that way because the people aren't armed.
So on that note,
even voting not safe. Most people can't go out to the polls because of the intimidation at the polls.
No, 100%. And on that note, what would you say, because Chad, they are in a similar situation, Guinea in West Africa, Gabon, in the sense that they have military rule. But what do you think about those nations in relation to the AES?
So the ones that you just named in particular are confrontational, because we don't know if those were coups or juntas. If you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
some of them still participate with outside governments, and so we don't know if it's really people led. If you see what I'm saying. So, but yeah, they have to. It's hard to answer the question. It's hard to answer the question because, like I say, some coups are false represented. So you had a situation in Guinea. It was the cousin of the president who so-called overthrew him. So we don't know if that was in the interest of just keeping the power there or if it was for the people. It's a lot of old governments that's scrambling right now. They don't know what they're going to do because African is awakening. And so they scared to lose the little fortunes that they have and the privileges that they have. So they're making it look like they're with the Sahel or they're with the business, but they not literally with it. Chad is coming along, but I hear that that's France's like last stronghold right now. So, but yeah, the militarization, the foreign militarization of Africa has to come to an abrupt end. We fighting for one Africa, one currency, and one military command. That's the only thing that could free the land.
Yeah, see, I heard some conversations about the AES, starting their own bank, and I was really, really happy about that because for someone like my parents are Cameroonian, so, looking at it, and you mentioned Chad as like France's, jewel in Africa, but I would say Cameroon is that because of the CFA system was set up there. Now, do you think that the AES will successfully be able to do their own independent bank? Or do you think it'll be like a Gaddafi situation, where they come in and just destroy the entire society?
Yeah, well, from my understanding, they've already made reserves and they already been banking 20% of the gold. And so they've already started doing that. And that's why Langley came out and said they're using the gold to protect themselves so they can create a narrative to go in and with Afrikan and assassinate or take him from office. When I'm talking about Captain Ibrahim Touré, President Captain Ibrahim Touré. So they made efforts to reserve their own gold and they actually even called for other African nations to bring their gold there to get it refined rather than sending it to Europe countries. So it's happening. But the thing is the protection of him. And that's why April 30th was so important, because they try to create a narrative like he's an animal, the people don't love him, like he's a cool leader, he overthrew the government, he must be stopped, he's using the gold to protect himself. And for us to step out all over the world, you know what I mean, for the President Captain Ibrahim Touré, it made it difficult for them to go in and do what they did. We see them do it to Gaddafi by saying that he was oppressing his people. And we see them do it to so many leaders, creating that same narrative that we're not taking it no more. The youth that's in lead of these revolutions that's happening right now, they haven't seen the same oppression that our grandparents and parents seen. So they fearless, you know what I mean? So I don't think we could ever go back to how we was. I had made an example before to someone. If you look at the 60s and the civil rights struggle and how they were sicking dogs and stuff on people on TV, the Black Panthers seen that and they said, we can't take this no more. They upped an arm. You know what I mean? And things changed. And so now we are in the internet age and we can see stuff right now in real time. It don't take a week for it to get to the news. They can't censor the news on us. We can see exactly what's happening. We can see that people are sleeping in the streets to protect their president. You know what I mean? So they can't get the American people to co-sign on the attack on that president or anyone in the Sahel because of today, the internet and the information age, and our support for them. But if we didn't know what was going on, if we wasn't supporting them, it would be easy for them to go in and say, "Oh, he's a terrorist," or the same narrative that they use to assassinate any other African leader.
No, that's facts. That's facts. And this next question, like from the chat from James, Pan African design and apparels is important. He's asking, I think we need to push for an AES. Burkina Faso needs an official YouTube channel with translation so that we can trust information coming directly from them. Now that's big. Even for me in my research, most of the research that I present on this channel does come from French sources. Because, I learned it as a kid, it's not as difficult for me to have access to it. But the question is and this is kind of a two-pronged question, going back to what you said. The media, the Western media, they're going to try to demonize them. Like before, it was like, oh, they're mistreating women. And then it was like, oh, they're killing gay people. And then it was like, oh, they're being barbaric. But what are the ways that the UNIA can help assist? Because Garvey, he had millions of followers without any internet, right? So the media from a Garveyite tradition is something that we should dominate. So how can the UNIA assist the AES in having a better, accurate, authentic media representation on the global scale?
Yeah, so like I said, we have a division in Burkina Faso. So it's really difficult trying to communicate because most of them speak French. But we do have a translator from Haiti who speaks French and English, who translates for us, and we able to, through WhatsApp communicate. But we trying to. That's why we doing this today. We trying to push the narrative, let people know who is Burkina Faso, why they exist, and the struggle on African continent for African independence. So we continue to push the narrative. We talking with them, PG. We're actually having conversations with people on the ground and trying to figure out the best way to send resources and support. We also seeking citizenship in various countries. So you think about the 40 million plus Africans that live in America. If we all became citizens or accepted as the sixth region, as citizens or part of the Sahel, then that would protect them by having people here, and with the black dollar, our economic dollar, being able to support. So let's say 40 million of us all pay a $20 fee, $35 fee, and become citizens of Burkina Faso with dual citizenship. That would give them surplus of money that they can use to run their programs, and would help us to create a trade back and forth. We thinking about a Black Star airline these days. We had a shipping company back in the days, but it's a lot of things that's been in the discussion that we're trying to figure out what's the best avenues to go down. But we're very proud of what's going on. We agitating with our ears to the ground, our feet to the ground, boots to the ground also, because we have people down there working. It's a big conference coming up in September, the Race First Conference in Baltimore. This will definitely be on the agenda. And yeah, man, and like I say, we have to see the wave that's going. It's just not Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali. Libya and several other countries are throwing up the shackles of colonial slavery. You got West Papua, New Guinea going through their struggles. You have people erupting in the islands. They tearing down bulldozing houses. In Costa Rica.
You're saying sound cut.
And taking people's property. So all over the world, it's uproar. So it's not just about how we can support them. It's about how can we all come together as a people, recognize ourselves as a government. In August 1920, it was 25,000 African delegates came together. We wrote a Declaration of Rights for Negro people in the world. We came with the red, black, and green flag. We wrote a constitution, and we declared ourselves a free, sovereign people, and we connected all across the diaspora. We have to live in that truth and keep pushing that truth. We keep trying to fight against an invisible enemy, and Ibrahim Traoré, President Captain Ibrahim Traoré, is showing us that the fight that they doing by nationalizing their natural resources, stopping little girls from wearing fake hair and having kids wear traditional clothing when they go to school, getting clean water to the villages and buying tractors and stuff like that to produce food is where the real war is at. You know what I mean? Fighting to feed our people, fighting for health and mental health and stability. That's where the real fight is at, instead of with these invisible enemies. Because once we come together in solidarity, it's harder for them to attack us. It's harder for them to spread a negative narrative. It's harder for them to get some terrorist group to attack innocent people when we stand together. So it's about changing our culture today, understanding, recognizing who we are. Garvey once said, he said, if black people knew their true origin, and the greatness from which we came, they'd be less likely to disrespect themselves. And I would say less likely to disrespect others also. So it's about us recognizing who we are, and embracing the sciences. A lot of us, we forgot the sciences. So the rest of the world is pushing forward further, you know what I mean, on science and technology, and we forgetting it. We build the pyramids and we live in the projects, so it's about us recognizing who we truly are, standing in that light. It's an old story about like the fly in the jar, and he stopped trying to get out, and they took the top off, and he never tried no more. So we at an age and a time where all of those old stories don't even matter no more. We need to take the shackles off our mind, emancipate our minds, and set ourselves free.
No, definitely, definitely. And I'm going to do a little bit of a round robin. We've been on about 50 minutes, and if you like the show, hit the Cash App to support and bring great guests like Jabari Garvey, who's literally a walking encyclopedia when it comes to Garveyism in the Black Power world. So we mentioned before that Cameroon, Paul Biya, literally, to me, he's a political juggernaut. He's about to win his eighth victory in a row, like an 8-peat at the age of 92. And, the CFA Franc was made in Cameroon during the Cameroonian Revolution or the Independence War. And there's been some tension. I actually have a video on my channel where I go into the tension between the Sahelian states and Cameroon, in the sense that Ibrahim Traore, Captain President, actually gave a nod to the Bamilekes, and he spoke about the Bamileke revolutionary fighters who fought against France. And this is really controversial because, in Cameroonian politics, the Bamilekes are castigated, known as outsiders, like outside of, Paul Biya's Betty Owando mafia. Right, so what do you think about Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore, kind of supporting what would be the opposition in Cameroon and kind of playing geopolitical chess against Paul Biya?
Oh, that's difficult. I don't have enough knowledge to answer that one correctly, but it is political warfare. I feel like the office of Captain Ibrahim Traore is very open to criticism, and that we need to communicate with them, and that he will correct his errors. I don't think he's closed-minded and maybe just misinformed. It's a lot of confusion on what's going on from country to country on their internal politics, and he kind of focused on what's going on in Burkina Faso and the assassination attempts against him. So and that's what we need to do more often, instead of villainizing our people, we should assume that maybe they're misinformed and reach out to them and to fix the narrative. Because, misinformation, we're in a misinformation age. It's too much information out here. So we have to be able to weed through it and know where to find the truth at.
That's what's up. Well, let me ask you this on that note, because I asked this question on my community tab. Do you think, like Paul Biya, it'll be his 8th victory if he wins this October, 92 years old. Do you think that he'll outlast the AES?
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not. I mean, the people are rising. Like I say, I feel like all these old leaders, so-called leaders, need to step aside. Your work hard ain't good. We're in a new age. That's crazy. 92 years old. That's our biggest problem. That's our biggest problem in the Black community here and on the continent is that our leadership want to be leadership forever. You know what I'm saying? We want to die in office. So you can have somebody that starts off good and well intent and later on, because they greed and want to stay in the office, changing constitutions, you know, taking gifts from foreign companies, sending their children outside of Africa to be educated. You know, those are some of the big problems. You know, it should be some kind of report card. You know, for presidents, like you're not doing nothing. Straight up. And I'm pushing personally. I'm pushing for the narrative, Captain Ibrahim Touré, for provisional president of all of Africa. You know, they need to reform the UN. You know, what the UN became. You know, the OAAU. You know, was a revolutionary organization set for real progress. You know, these countries felt like they was free already, and they decided to retreat on the original plan of the OAAU, and then they formed the AU. And
break those acronyms down, because not everybody knows those acronyms.
Okay. So in 1964 in Addis Ababa. It was a big meeting where Malcolm X attended this meeting, and it was all these African nations. See, because when you talk about Malcolm X, we usually only focus on the trip to Mecca, but he went through a lot of African nations and met with world leaders in Africa. And this is where they would decide where they would go to with their independence. And so it was two different groups. You know, one group, the Kwame Nkrumah group, said we need one Africa, one military command, one finance. The other groups, they wanted to hold on to their little power. They like, let's move slow, you know. So they still stayed into the colonial power. And that's how France.
There's a little echo.
They ended up keeping their money in their banks. So you had a francophone, and that's why we have to go to France and ask for the money that belongs to Africa. That was the biggest mistake that would happen in the African independence movement. We need to go back to that time. We need to go back and correct that, you know, and have all Africans on one accord on what we need, and break these invisible borders. You know, get rid of Afrikan, get rid of the francophone. You know, we keep taking alien problems for African solutions. You know, and we got to get past that. Like, that time and that age is over. The plan, the Black Print was written hundreds of years ago. Exactly what we need to do is all there, spelled out for us. Just follow the plan.
Yeah, so that's like, and you breaking down like the Casablanca versus the Monrovia group in the early days of the AU. And I see that debate today, even going back to what I asked before about civilian government. Many people say, no, the Sahelian states are wrong because they're ran by the military. Others are even cheerleading ECOWAS, because ECOWAS is a branch of the AU. They're saying if you get out of ECOWAS, you're destabilizing the region. And that kind of is a segue into my next question. Because when you deal with the situation in the Congo and how the Congo is just a disaster politically, like most of our phones and electronics come from the Congo. Malcolm X, you know, when he created the OAAU, literally said that Congo is the most important country in the world. And he called Patrice Lumumba, who's another Garveyite, his hero, right? So speaking of all this, the fact that Congo wants to bring the Trump administration, you know, to protect from Rwanda in exchange for mineral concessions, what are the ways that the UNIA can, you know, fix this problem? Because if we're not to deal with the AU, we're not to deal with, you know, ECOWAS, you know, the Central African branch of this, if we're to completely go back and, you know, start over from the Sahel, do you think that that would be destabilizing, or do you think that that's the right way? Like, just to shut it down, rip it up, tear it down, and just start from the beginning in order to fix the situation in Congo?
Yeah, the situation in Congo is multiplex. And then you think about Rwanda and who do they work for? You see what I'm saying? So They attacking Rwanda, attacking Congo for British interests.
Yeah.
So it goes with the same thing that was going on in France. That they attack somewhere. I mean, going on in Burkina Faso or in Niger. They destabilize economies so that we beg them to come in with their military and take all of our raw resources. So I mean, this is a part of their old playbook. You know, so they had been plotting on the Congo for years, and you see from what happened with Rwanda, that big tragedy, it's the same rebels who's attacking the people in the Congo, you know? So where you have to track where the money come from. How are they getting these weapons? You know,
Yeah.
who's funding, who benefits the most off of these attacks? So, you know, it's two sides of the same coin. You know, the British are funding the rebels and Americans coming in to take the profits. So, you know, that's what they do. They throw a stone and hide their hands.
Facts.
So it hurt me that they made this deal. You know, knowing what was going on, knowing the mineral richness of the country. But in despair, what do? You know, in despair,
Yeah.
what do you really do? You know, it's sad. It's sad to see what's going on, but we just hoping that with this recent wave of what's going on in the Sahel, that more people, more countries will be influenced, and that they'll start to fight the corrupt governments that they working with. So when Sahel is stable, you know what I'm saying, then they could go to other countries and go help out their situation. You see what I'm saying? But we still looking at coup attempts, you know what I'm saying, and assassination attempts on the lives of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, president of Burkina Faso.
100%, 100%. And I mean, I think it takes solidarity, you know, just to ameliorate a lot of these problems. Just the fact that like literally everything, I mean, even EVs now, like the EV industry is being like propelled by Congolese minerals and resources, you know, and companies like Tesla and BYD. And speaking of Tesla, you know, we could start to talk about just the situation in South Africa, you know, with the land, you know, there's supposed to be land expropriation without compensation. Like literally Donald Trump is giving Boers, white South Africans, refugee status, like free access to enter into America. So the question is like, how do you think that, you know, Trump giving the Boers access to America is going to play out? And what are the ways that the UNIA and the black world in general can solve that problem?
Yeah, we see it as, I mean, it's straight racism. You know what I mean? You know, you see what happens in other countries, and they wouldn't give people political asylum, and the way that they do it here is, man, it's crazy. You know, we seen the same thing in Zimbabwe too, right?
Yeah.
You know, they keep the same playbook. You know, the colonizer came in, they got the richest part of the land. You know what I'm saying? People can't barely survive. You know, they got 90% of the best agricultural land. And so, what are the people supposed to do? See, you have to think about African culture and the way things happen in Africa. It's like you can't own the land. The land belongs to the people. You can work the land, you can lease the land, but not own the land. So no foreigners be able to come into Africa and own the land.
Facts.
And then they talk about they Afrikaners, like this is their home. But you know, they only been there 4 or 5 generations. What about the people that they massacred to get off of that land? You know, you think about the Tiffany Diamond. You know what I'm saying? The Tiffany Diamond mine is in South Africa. You know, but why do people starving? You know what I'm saying? Why do people live in the worst conditions, in the worst areas of South Africa? So, man, I mean, get the Boers up out of there, however they get up out of there. But know that white racist mentality is coming to America more in force. Like, it's a trip what's going on with South Africa, because, you know, they've been apolitical. They've been on top of everything, you know, standing up for Palestine, standing with Captain Ibrahim Traoré and the Sahel. You know, I would question with them getting all of them, the Boers out of there, what's next for South Africa? Do they plan some bombing or some kind of occupation in South Africa? So I would worry about that. And because you see, recently Julius Malema tried to go to, I can't remember what country he tried to go to. It might have been France, and they stopped him from getting the visa. So yeah, man. So it's some political stuff going on. It's really deep. The thing is, BRICS. It looked like BRICS is making more options for African nations. You see what I'm saying? When I talk about BRICS, I'm talking about Brazil, Russia. You know, the currency that they all putting together, and it's based on the mineral resources in Africa anyway. So by having that relationship with China, Russia, and these South Africa, these strong countries, countries who've been oppressed, they see some light in a way that throw off the shackles by working with somebody else. Like, you know, we get in debt to the IMF, we get in debt through the Frankenforum, and so we always have to beg from our oppressors. You know, I think Captain Ibrahim Traoré said we'll never be free if we have to if our enemies are the ones who's gonna protect us. You know what I'm saying? So that's exactly what they doing. They destabilize the situation so that we beg for them to come in, and when they come in with so-called democracy, that they bring in McDonald's. You know, they bring in alien cultures. They force governments to accept the LBGT agenda. And I'm not saying nothing about no group of people, but you don't go in and force another culture to change.
Because Burkina's Muslim, like, and that's why I was telling people. A lot of people were saying that, oh, you know, they're anti-gay, but it's like they're Muslim. You can't force them to change their culture just because you want them to accept the LGBT community, their movement.
Right. And one of the most beautiful things about President Captain Ibrahim Traoré that I heard that Saudi Arabia reached out to them and told them that they would build, I think it was 200 mosques.
Oh, yeah.
He was like, yeah, we want to help you.
He's like,
he
nah.
was like, man, we got enough mosques.
Yeah.
We need schools.
Yeah.
We need infrastructure. We need security. And so that's a beautiful man. You know what I'm saying? Because you had the Muslim question when it comes to black people. You know what I'm saying? Are we Muslim first, or are we African first? You know, and of course we believe in God. You know what I'm saying? Our God is invisible. You know, he has no color. You know, but when do you betray what is right for you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, for any case, like, because this question comes a lot, and you know, I always say it this, you know, because you know, most of my family, most black people around the world are adherents to Abrahamic faith traditions, just from the nature of the experience in our existence, you know, in the modern world. But it's a different category. The faith that you have has nothing to do with your responsibilities to take care of your people, your family, your nation here on earth. It's actually a sin to not take care of your own. It's actually a sin to not provide for your family and to not protect your nation. So we have to stop mixing these two categories, you know, and it's easy because Garvey did it. Garvey was a Christian, you know, Khalid Muhammad was a Muslim. We've had plenty of examples of, you know, revolutionaries who also adhere to faith traditions as well. We have to stop acting as if they're contradictory.
Yeah, and then, you know, if they really read the book, they'd see how, what's the name, sold his birthright for bread. And that's what we doing today in Africa, you know. We celebrate our birthright, the natural minerals that come out the ground for something to eat, you know, and you see how Niger is in the dark while France is benefiting off the uranium. You know, all the cocoa is getting sent to Switzerland and other places to be produced. You know, we send off our rice and buy it back. You know?
The oil from Nigeria to be refined is another example of that.
Why we can't do it right at home?
You should be able to do it.
Why do Africans see? It's crazy, man. It upsets me because when I was in college, I was a part of the African Student Association and the Black Student Union, but they was two different groups. And a lot of the brothers and sisters that I was meeting was sitting here on assignment. You know, they were supposed to come learn engineering. They were supposed to come become teachers and go back home and teach these skills back home.
Yeah.
But a lot of them got trapped here for whatever reasons. For whatever reasons, they got trapped here and didn't make it back there. And that's why they looking to us, you know what I'm saying, Africans from the diaspora, to come back with these skills and teach them to them so they can build, you know, because if we did that, then they wouldn't have to go to the Chinese to make these deals. They wouldn't have to go to Russia and make these, because we coming back with skills. We built America. We built every civilization known to man. You know what I'm saying? So it's on us of the diaspora to come back and teach these skills.
Yeah, on that note, you know, because I have another video on my channel, you know, called AUS versus FBA, Reparations Are Dead. So it goes back to a lot of the individuals who were saying Pan-Africanism is dead. They identify with FBA, ADOS. They think that Black Americans should separate from the diaspora completely, and even to the extent of treating the diaspora as enemies. And they believe that that's the only way to achieve reparations. So what is the UNIA's position on reparations, and how does it relate to the legality of it, of the reparations question?
Well, I'm personally a member of NCOBRA, and a lot of our UNIA members support NCOBRA and support reparations. I mean, we need reparations, repair, you know, a promise not to repeat. So we definitely for reparations. And the thing with the FBA, how do I describe it? That's like COINTELPRO and modern day COINTELPRO. I mean, counterintelligence. We know the relationship between Africa and the indigenous people here. We know that Columbus was the last of the people who came to America. You know, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima was a member of the UNIA. Dr. Runoko Rashidi, who exposed the heads and the OMAC heads, was a member of the UNIA and our traveling ambassador. So he was waking people up to the knowledge of who we are and what we've done all over the world. Now these people want to go backwards, ignore history, say there was no slavery because you don't see no slave ships. Well, I say, what about, you know, I mentioned slave ships to them. I show them narratives from Zora Neale Hurston, you know, interviewing one of the last people who was stolen from Africa. We show them all the information, but they still don't want to know it. That's like the flat earth people, you know what I'm saying? So I believe that that's a narrative with the FBA, you know, that they created to get us to argue and take our mind off of freedom, because we the closest we ever been to getting some kind of reparations and repair. You know, the conversation is out now more than ever. And, you know, you go back to Malcolm X, and because Malcolm X is the one who made the term Afro-American, you know, and when he talked about Afro-American or African-American, he was talking about Africans, people with African descent in the Americas, North America, Central America, and South America. So when people talk about somebody from Brazil and they ignorance, you know what I'm saying? They don't think of them as an African American. Yeah. They are. That's in America.
They are.
When you talk about somebody in Haiti, they're an African American. They're a Black American. So for them to say we foundational Black Americans and that we're different than the ones in Jamaica, we're different than the ones in Haiti, you're stupid. It's idiocracy. And then, you know, even when the revolution happened in Haiti, you know, a lot of the slave owners took their slaves and came to America with their slaves. And that's how we found out about the revolution in Haiti. And we started organizing more revolutions right here on this land. So the people in Haiti came here. You know what I'm saying? Louisiana, they have a lot of Haitian relation. Florida have a lot of Haitian relation. We know who we are. They going back on some. I just recently was in New Orleans, and I visited Congo Square. You know, and this was some indigenous land. Why would they call it Congo Square? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's where Africans played their drums, jumped the broom, and you know what I'm saying? And not far from there, you have pyramid mounds. Pyramid mounds built by the ancient people, the Mississippian people. The same kind of pyramid mounds that's in West Africa. It's all this archaeological evidence, scientific evidence, and you have a group of people who want to tell you how they feel. Because their grandma said something. Their grandma who may have been illiterate. No disrespect to anybody's grandma. because their grandma said that we always been here. Man, my great grandmother, my great grandmother's name is Alzada, and I come to find out because now I'm Muslim that's a Muslim name. I did a blood test, did a DNA test, find out that my people come from Sierra Leone, West Africa, the Mandi people. They're a Muslim majority tribe. Almost everybody's Muslim. If you're Mandi, that's synonymous with being Muslim.
Islam.
And my great grandmother's name is Alzada. Zayd was the stepson of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The only one that's mentioned in the Quran. My grandmother was named after this person here in America. They knew their history.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about the people in Charleston, the Gullah Geechee, the people in Georgia. They know their connection to Africa. I heard they even still fish with nets, the same ones like the ones they fish with in Ghana. You know what I'm saying? And this is from a report from Professor James Smalls. What he said, it's not something I've seen myself, but we know who we are. We recognize who we are. We all these groups that name themselves African groups, you know what I'm saying, during Reconstruction. Why would they call themselves African? They were closer to knowing. We got people like Edward Wilmot Blyden, who repatriated, you know, and went to Liberia and lived and died in Sierra Leone. And so I think it's crazy. I think it's crazy for people. In my own family line, my 8th-time great-grandfather and great-grandmother both repatriated to Sierra Leone.
Wow.
You know, this 1871. This was before the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey was ever born. My great-grandfather, he went and taught agricultural skills to people out there. And my great-grandmother, she taught like how to run a house and be a good wife, classes like that. After he died, she returned back to America. This is the legacy of my family. So we know who we are. We know we deeply entrenched and connected with Africa. We look at our language, look at the clothes we wear. It's the same. When I was in the 3rd grade, this a sister came. I think she was from Guinea or somewhere. She was doing a bunch of different dances, and I'm like, "That's the Roger Rabbit. That's the Running Man." These were African dances that she came and introduced to us. That's when I found out that the pants that MC Hammer was wearing when he did the Chinese typewriter, that the Chinese typewriter comes from Africa. Like, you got, you know, the tortilla come from Africa. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We used chickpeas and made flatbread. After colonizing, we introduced it to Spain in 711. When they colonized us, the Portuguese, and brought us to South America, we started using corn because we couldn't use chickpeas as regularly. And then we got moved to North America, to the Northern Hemisphere, we started using flour. So the tortilla that you say is Mexican, is African.
Even
the horchata.
The horchata, yeah.
That's African, you know. Red rice. They got Spanish rice. They tell me Spanish rice is any different than jollof rice.
It's the same thing.
Right. So we even have. If you look back in the ancient and they tested the mummies, some of them had cocaine and tobacco in their system. You see what I'm saying? So we know that we had a relationship with this land way before Columbus, thousands of years before him. You talk about who made it here first. We made it here first. They want to credit the Sapiens and the Asians who came after the polar caps supposed to melted. You know what I'm saying? We had been here for 25,000 years before the polar caps had melted. And we have pyramids and archaeology that shows proof of it.
No, that's what's up. And you were going deep into your family lineage, and like I wanted to ask as the last part of our conversation. We got about 20 minutes before I got to go on to my next call, but just talk about your grandfather. Your grandfather is a very famous black inventor, extremely famous black inventor. Just talk about who he is and just his legacy and what he meant to your activism growing up, and eventually deciding to join the UNIA.
Yeah, Dr. Earl David Shaw, my grandfather. My father's name was David Shaw before he turned into Jabari Ali. He grew up sharecropping. His mother was a sharecropper out of Clarksdale, Mississippi. Funny because the movie Sinners was based out of there. That's where they were from. And his mother moved to Chicago and left him down to be down there until she got stable. His father was kind of like a bad boy, as they say, shoot him up type of thing. While in Chicago, he was in the tavern and he went to get his little whiskey. As he opened it up to drink it, they pulled a gun on him. And he pulled his gun. He said, they ain't stopped making them when they made yours. They explained the tavern is like a bar at the time. Black people could come in and buy something, but you couldn't sit around and drink. So, you know, he opened the bottle and they pulled their guns on him and it ensued a shootout. So my grandfather's father was murdered when he was 6 years old. He and his brother were both murdered. My family changed their names from Shaw because they didn't want to be associated with him. The newspaper said that he was a bank robber. His mother, my grandmother, continued to work. She worked in the West Side area. She worked with some politicians. She was dealing with city council and stuff like that. She adopted several people. She only had one child, my grandfather. My grandfather excelled in school because his uncle was 4 or 5 years older than him. They was in one-room classrooms. And so, it's like you learn based on your level. So he was learning with his uncle. And so he had already graduated and was going to college at 14. At 14, he came up to Chicago to go to school, and they wouldn't allow him. They didn't believe him. They said, look, this little old boy, he ain't college ready. So he had to take a bunch of tests. He had to have his teacher send up his accolades and write a letter for him. And my grandmother had to try to find death certificates and stuff for his deceased father for him to be able to get into college. He excelled in science and math. He was actually a physicist. He became a physicist. He invented something they call a free electron laser. So if you know about lasers, you need protons, neutrons, and electrons. So he found out some way to create this laser without using electrons. He had another one called a spin flip top laser. It's 3 big lasers that he made in particular that kind of slipped my mind. I had to do a report on my grandfather in the 7th grade. A teacher told me that he wasn't my grandfather. They shamed me. Security dragged me out the classroom and gave me a DHP. And then so I came back with big stacks of information on him. And they, they let me back into school and she wanted to ask me can he come to the classroom and talk. But yeah, he made one invention that actually during the Cold War, Russia tried to emulate, and they spent a lot of money trying to emulate that, and maybe a reason why America won the Cold War. But that's a little speculation from my father. But he my grandfather taught at Rutgers University for a long time. One of his lasers is built there. He's still alive. He was recently in Europe doing some interviews for a book that's supposed to come out on him. My uncle is his successor, Dr. Alan C. Shaw. He teaches at various colleges in the Atlanta area, teaching computer science. Most of my cousins and stuff are all computer sciences. I'm the only one. I'm a social sciences,
Also
but yeah,
important.
when I was a child, he would always take me to the Lawrence Hall of Science and different science theaters and places like that to try to help me to follow after his legacy.
Yeah, I'm posting some links in the chat. Like this is legendary. Like Earl David Shaw, is a legendary Black inventor, probably one of the greatest of all time. And not that many people know about him, which is shocking, but literally, like, in terms of modern laser technology, in terms of modern, physics, he is a trailblazer. So, that's why we're blessed to have you as one of his descendants here, just continuing the legacy of Garveyism. And I wanted to ask you, like, on this note, like, how do you think we can prevent like Black inventors from, living their life and getting their inventions stolen from these major white-owned corporations and not being able to benefit from the technology they create? Like, what do we need to do to prevent that from happening?
Yeah, they say the only thing the white man invented was the patent. And reflecting on the question before, in the 7th grade when I did the report on my grandfather, the article, it said Pan-African inventors. And so that's what made me know and identify myself as Pan-African back then before I ever knew what Pan-African actually meant. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So, yeah, and you think about Kwanzaa Kinjufu, Jawanza Kinjufu, and when he said, you know, black child needs to see a black engineer. For him to become a black engineer, we can only be what we phantom. You know, we created everything, and then you even look on the continent, you know, and new inventions that's coming up right now. It's a brother that they got a hybrid car that charges itself as you drive it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I guess the wheels drive it. The brother out of Atlanta, you know, it's somebody in I think Tanzania, a brother who connecting nanotechnology to where you could use Android hands and like if your arm got cut off and you need you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Making so where you can think and move your fingers. So it's amazing technology. I think it's a brother in Lagos who had invented some helicopter type of. We built everything. We built the pyramids. We in the projects. That's what we need to recognize, realize who we are. Garvey said we need to teach our children the best of science for our excellence, or else we'd be behind for another 100 years.
Facts.
So it's great that we identify with who we are and the science of being African. But we have to know that algebra came from us.
Facts.
We created algebra. You know, I flunked intermediate algebra maybe 6 times before I passed it, and I found out that North Africans, Muslims created algebra. Then it made sense. I said, oh, this is my stuff. First I was like, man, what white man want me to add up X plus Y? This is stupid. It was stupid until I could identify with it. And so that's what we need to do. We need to highlight the best of our people so that we can identify with greatness and we can push to be more. It's on purpose the way that they do it and hide the technology and the greatness that we have, you know what I'm saying? Because my little brother can tell you everybody that's ever played for the Raiders, when they got drafted, you know, what they high school and college stats in, but they can't tell you anything about Marcus Garvey, Kwame Nkrumah. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and then for these black inventors, if our children knew about them, then they would create something greater than they did.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They'd be like, oh, I can do that. We don't think that we can do it because we don't see what we created that was great. And to go back to that quote, if we knew our greatness and where we came from, we'd be less likely to disrespect ourselves. We disrespecting ourselves by not pushing our fullest talents. And for those who believe in God, I believe that on Judgment Day, when all of this is over, God is going to ask you, what did you do with those talents that I gave you? What did you do with the time that I gave you? What did you do with the resources that I gave you? And if you didn't use them for the liberation of your people, for the upliftment of your people, the best of your family, then it's damnation for you, in my belief. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what we are made for. You know what I'm saying?
100%. So we got about 8 minutes before we got to close this out. So is there anything that you would like to leave the audience with, you know, anything about the UNIA, things that are happening in the United States, or anything that you're working on just to, you know, help support the Alliance of Sahelian States?
Yeah, so we building in Kenya, you know, we trying to take a bunch of laptops and education equipment out there. We have some land that's put to us, the UNIA and the trust through our division out there. And so the plan is to build a school from the ground up. You know, we got a brick quarry, so we're gonna start building our own bricks and teaching classes. You know, several of our divisions have libraries and different stuff like that. So what I'm trying to get you to understand, on the continent, they dealing with a lot of colonial books. So our education on the continent, they're not getting it the same way that we are here. You know what I'm saying? They need books written by us that can inspire the best of us, you know? And so that's what we're trying to do. And that's what we plan to do. Take more resources there and to build the school and build community learning centers. We did it in the Gambia. We had the Pan-African Library there. We're sending books to Ghana where we had a Black Star Hotel. So we need help. We need help everywhere, you know what I'm saying? And Friday night, you go spend $30, $40 on a bottle, on some smoke, wasting it frivolously. You know what I'm saying? But you could donate to the African Redemption Fund, you know, and help the people do what they need. You know, liberation is on our mind all of the time. You know, my name is Jabari Garvey on TikTok. You can find me on Instagram. It's Minister of Confrontation. That's Minister _of_ Confrontation. You can find me on Facebook. It's Jabari Shaw. And the website is make sure I got it right, UNIA/ACL.RC2020. Wait, no, I messed it up. UNIAACLRC2020.com. And my email is musicismyweapon223@gmail.com. I look forward to working with all like-minded people. You know, one of our phrases is, we got more Garveyites outside the UNIA than in the UNIA. You know, we recognize you, we see the work that you're doing, you know, and we want to build with you. Africans must unite.
That's what's up. That's what's up. And on the last note, African Legend is asking if you have any place of support, like Cash App or Venmo or anything where you would accept support.
Yeah, I got a Cash App, Chef Jabari.
So Cash App /Chef Jabari.
Yes.
How do you spell? Is it just CHEF Jabari?
Yes.
All right,
CHEF.
All right, I see. I'm gonna post it in the chat for anybody who would like to support this good brother. And we're about to close out, but I want to say that, you know, this is going to be a continuous show featured on this channel. We're going to have Jabari on consistently just to come back and just talk about, you know, just the updates in the African world with Pan-Africanism, the Sahelian states, the fight against imperialism, and the different ways that we could unite black people all over the world. One God, one aim, one destiny. So if you would like to close us out with a pledge of allegiance, I would definitely appreciate that. Then we can close the fam out and send them off.
I say, right, pledge to the flag. I commit my body, my mind, and my spirit to the protection, defense, and security of the red, the black, and the green. I dedicate my life to the redemption of Mother Africa and to the liberation of her scattered black children. I accept for myself and my descendants the teachings of universal African nationalism, and I promise that our children will be instilled with the purpose and knowledge of themselves as African people. So all black people are free and united under one God, one aim, one destiny, one Africa, race first.
Ashe. I'm gonna play the Patreon exit outro, and we outside. Thank you for coming on, and I look forward to seeing you on the next edition of this broadcast. Grassroots Garveyism with Jabari Garvey.
Thank you for all that you do.
Welcome to Camgiverse. This is your exclusive bridge between the legacy of classical Africa and the triumphs of modern African revolutions. You won't find this connection anywhere else.
Thank you so much for this.
If you're new here,
so
smash
much.
that subscribe button and hit the bell so you never miss an episode. Share this video with friends and family. Become a channel member or join our Patreon. The links are waiting in the description. Let's honor our sacred legacy and ignite our future together.
Questions, you know, I learned, man, don't try to answer questions you don't know the answer to.
Yeah.
They find one thing wrong with what you said, they throw everything out.
Our truth burns bright. We stand as one and
Yeah, that's like me and my family talking about it.
No scam or false prophet can dim our light. Unfiltered, that pride takes flight.
Shut up, you dumb. You sound like a fool. Get out, stay clear of this room. We proud, we black, British, and forever stay paid. They lies and killing spraying from the soil they enslaved. That tales a sham cooked up by scammers who toil. So shut up, chief X, you're a grifter. Spoil your bow, have a drivel like your soul. Coptic verse, that language is liturgical, not through my hearse curse. While Ethiopian and Nubian cops and Cairo so merciful. Drop surgical, leaving your myths pitiful.
You act like black folks ain't speaking Remy, Jimmy, you idiot. See buds deep, can't study, can't even see. Bubble brother, hush and clout. Unity and chemistry, our truth burns bright. We stand as one exposing your lies to lies tonight. No scam or false prophet can dim our lives. Let our filter, let light take flight.
You claim you came from Baltimore, you want trash on your display. I bet the faithful flock was out dusting your ass away. Into that fat orange cat, you're dumber than a box of rocks. Pushing assimilation is politics, the shock like cheap mock. We spot you from a mile, your act just isn't slick. This is real knowledge, not your chronological scholarship. If you scared, you should be watching I spit. God's flame, no bars, no game. You're dumb when I put you to shame.
Your twisted lies crumble and your fake talk fades. Our united voice echoes, truth never degrades. From the ashes of the sea,
and I definitely need the content. So like any creator, like you're one of many that I'm bringing onto your shows on a variety of topics.
Garvey
So
aka Amir, the
it's
scams a
helpful to
total
me
disgrace.
because
Spitting
it
away
was
with
a
one
lot
jargon
of
at a crooked
my
scheme and
show
pace. Your twist
that
words
I
confused,
put
try to carve up a space.
I'm
A
able
fraud,
to
your
build
fake
platforms
gospel body you with no base. You try to fool slow raps with your bogus empty dies, but your clumsy act crumbles under truth piercing eyes. Kemet stands united, no room for your deceitful
So I got
arms. Step
like
aside, false
2
prophet,
minutes,
your lies won't break a heart.
before I gotta close this out. I'm actually gonna
Our
have to
truth
go
burns
over
bright. We stand as one exposing
but
your
yeah, let's just
lies
keep
to lies
tabs on
tonight.
this WhatsApp
No
a lot,
scam or false
so we can
prophet
use that to
can
communicate
dim
or
our
text or whatever
lives.
works. And
Let
I'm
our filter,
let you know about my plan
light
for our
takes
next episode.
So how do I share this?
You could share the YouTube link. You can share the YouTube link on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, wherever. It's like I'm gonna actually send that to you on WhatsApp. That's gonna be the full broadcast, and I'm gonna be able to go back and listen to it to make sure it sounded good. And then from there we will be able to deal
Unity
with
and Kemet, our
any
truth burns bright.
technical
We stand as
issues that
one,
we have,
exposing your lies tonight.
audio and
No scam or false prophet can dim our light. Kemet, unfiltered, black pride takes flight.
So I look forward to chopping up with you, building.
Want to be in maybe 2 weeks or?
Yeah, we can do it. We can do it too if you want to. I'm technically trying to plan. Well, actually, honestly, like however often you want to do it, right? So if you wanted to